Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 167. My guest in this episode is Johnzelle Anderson. Johnzelle is a therapist, and he is also a writer and author. And I am having him here in this episode as a guest to speak to a book that he recently had published, or was published, and the book is called Mixtape, a Memoir. And Mixtape is a play on words, as Johnzelle is a blended person is how the politically correct might say it, but the mix in Mixtape in the 90s in the West Central Virginia, it was called a mixed person, and so that's his play on words there. And he was born to a white American mother and a black West African father, and had a very tumultuous, adverse childhood. And I think if you had dealt with any kind of adversity in your childhood, there will be things, regardless of who you are, that you can pick up on in this book and relate to. So it's a challenging read if you did deal with that. And so in this conversation, there may be some trigger things for some people. That we do talk about child abuse and a few other things that might be a bit much for some folks who are sensitive. So anyway, I very much love the book. I got drawn right into it. I enjoyed speaking with Johnzelle. It was a very warm conversation. So hope you enjoy it, and thank you all so much for being here. And I would like to welcome Johnzelle Anderson to the IdeaCast interview series. Johnzelle and I chatted a little bit before we hit record, and we talked a little bit on emails, and we're here to talk about a book that Johnzelle has written. And I'll confess, when I get a book and somebody hands me a copy to read, I consider an assignment, and I'm like, okay, you dutifully need to read this book and get through it. And so I started your book that way, and then as the proverbial pages were being flipped in the PDF form that I had, I really got drawn into it, and so became not an assignment, but a consumption, and kind of an analysis of what I think a lot of people who come to your book will find connection. And I was finding a few connections for myself. We've lived we're disparate in some ways, but also lots of connections. So that's how I want to bring your book out to introduce it. And I want to hand it over to you, and maybe you can just share with us the premise of the book, what's going on, and then I think we'll just jump in and just start unpacking the book. But first of all, actually, sorry, I'm tangential. Congratulations on the release of the book.
Thank you.
It's been a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations on making it into adulthood. That's the other thing I want to congratulate you, because honest to God, dude, there's some stuff in there, and so we're gonna
took a bit.
Yeah. But that's what I love.
Well, I'll respond to what you said. So, first of all, Justin, thank you for having me. Everyone listening, my name is Johnzelle Anderson, and I define myself as a therapist and storyteller. My debut book, Mixtape, a Memoir, came out in March. And to answer your question, Justin, Mixtape, a Memoir is a coming of age story, but I am a lover of music, and I wanted to if I was going to tell my story, I thought of it like if my life is a movie. Some people would be like, oh, who would I have play me, or what would the era be, or what would we be wearing, or whatever. I would be concerned about what the soundtrack is, because I love music so much. So when I started to tell my story, I framed it around a mixtape, and I wanted the framework of, instead of like a table of contents, I wanted there to be a playlist, and instead of chapters, I wanted to call them tracks. And because I see music as a form of storytelling, so what better way to be multisensory in my own storytelling than to bring that element of sound? And at the front of my book, there are QR codes to the playlist where readers can listen along. But then each track begins with a little cassette tape that has the song that I'm referencing, and that kind of resonates with what I'm talking about there. And I wanted to create a literary mixtape.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I've been able to accomplish that with this project. And it is my favorite thing I've ever written so far. But also in the title Mixtape, it has the word mixed, which as part of my identity, I have a white parent and a West African parent. So they called me mixed when I was
Mm-hmm.
growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a double meaning. So that's kind of the intro to this book here.
Right, right. And there are a lot of characters in your book, and I want to bring a few of them out for our examination and also to whet the appetite of the potential
Hmm.
purchaser of your book and experiencer of your book. But um, first of all, one of you mentioned coming what they called mixed back then, or from your
Hmm.
of blended background, and I'm gonna be really like as a white person, I'm gonna like react in a visceral way
Hmm.
to why did you get such horrible white people on the white side of your
Yeah.
family, right? I grew up in D.C. and I grew up
Hmm.
with blended families, and I grew
Hmm.
up with people who share your composition, and
Yeah.
that's part of me that was kind of like twitchy during the book, reading the book, because we'll unveil rural Appalachia, we'll unveil the
Yeah.
provenance of the person that gave birth to you.
Yeah.
And I went from DC to the Shenandoah Valley at 13.
Okay.
Ironically, because the person that gave birth to me thought I was turning into a miscreant in the city, because the city is such a wonderful place to be a
I love
monster,
DC.
a freak. Oh, yeah. So anyway, she took me out of DC at 13, and she said, "This will be a more wholesome life for you." Dude, there was so much drugs and alcohol in the
That's
mountains.
all you
I'm
can
like,
do.
whoop whoop. Yeah, exactly. Bored kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so anyway, but so I have an understanding or a context or a frame
Hmm.
of what that half uh,
Hmm.
could be constituted of, because in the beauty and the Stanton. So you mentioned Stanton in the book. I live just
Hmm.
south of there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, but I also know some of the
Hmm.
psychology. I know some of the disposition of some of the
Hmm.
folks there, and it can be two-faced. It can be deceptive, superficial, or it can be
Hmm.
outright, card-carrying racism and things like that. So,
Yeah.
so part of what I was feeling for you, empathizing for you in that book, is that it's one thing to be in a blended family. It's one thing to have a parent
Hmm.
of European origin and another person of, you quite literally had African origin from Sierra Leone.
Yeah. West African. Yeah.
Edmund, the person that we could loosely say is your father,
Yeah.
was of that origin. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because it was one of the things that I felt for you in that book. And people who read the book will be intimately aware of what you and I are kind of glossing
Yeah.
over right now. So, and my cat's
Yeah.
photobombing, so sorry.
That's
Let
okay.
me get off the
That's
keyboard
okay.
so you don't. There you go. Okay, now you can
Yeah.
begin.
I'll say, not to, I guess, toot my own horn or whatever, but
Hmm.
the stories in and of themselves, all I had to do was tell them with my creative way. But the stories themselves are outrageous enough that they can entertain. Like if it wasn't somebody's life, you'd be like, that's the wildest shit that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Um, and so, that's how I knew I had, a story worth telling. Cause I mean, I've obviously lived through all of this stuff, but,
Hmm.
when people kept telling me like, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. And I was just like, okay. And then I did that. But, the, it is a unique vantage point to be like, okay, I'm mixed race, mixed growing up in the 90s, but what happens when your first racists are your white caregivers? And what does that do to someone's identity and the unfolding of that identity? But then as a, person who's an adult looking around at like literature and being like, there's not a ton of, memoirs written from the vantage point of a mixed race person. And so, also being a storyteller and adding your perspective to the mix, I think, pun not intended, but it works,
Hmm.
is to, uh, you know, our stories can make someone feel, loved, liked, and understood. And I think my journey of becoming through telling this story and seeing me evolve from, infant to 31 is where the book kind of cuts off at,
Hmm.
kind of does that. But then it is, outrageous enough to entertain, but also very uh, typical life experiences that people go through.
Mm-hmm.
So that even if you're not a mixed race, black guy growing up in Southwest Virginia, you're going to see elements of yourself in this story because there are universal human experiences. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that it had that effect for you.
Yeah, because there was a kind of reverse naivete having grown up in DC again and
Hmm.
being exposed to a very cosmopolitan culture, and to speak to Black America, that there is an upper middle class, there's a wealth class that it's just like Atlanta, Georgia. It's not the
Hmm.
cliche, it's not the stereotype that you see on television that's just really kind of nasty. So seeing that and then moving into Virginia, there was a little level of readjustment there and having to see
Hmm.
how white folks were kind of uh, disposed to treat certain issues. And then I moved to Florida, and I'm like, holy shit, dude,
Hmm.
it's crazy down here. So
I these days I've been when I say United States, United is in air quotes because
Mhm.
it's never felt so not united. But even within, say, a state, any neighborhood from one to another can be very different.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, uh, and it can either be uh, jarring or it could just be like, wow, humans do come in different shapes and sizes and thoughts
Mhm.
and things like that. But at the same time, we're not that complex that it's not that things don't follow trends too. So it's about how
Yeah.
you settle on that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'm grateful for all the exposures that I've had because it just tempers me, I think, and I don't get lodged in a particular niche or a particular perspective, So again, living in DC to Virginia to Florida and Florida's all over the place. Like you get down to South
Hmm.
Florida and you're in the Caribbean basically, and there's
Hmm.
so it's a Creole culture down there. You've got
Hmm.
Haiti and Puerto Rico and Dominica and Cuba and then New Yorkers, right, from some
Yeah.
weird foreign planet, New Jersey.
Hmm.
So it's a nice mix. But getting back to Virginia, getting back to what was revealed in the first few chapters, aka the cassettes, the
Yeah.
mixes. Um, you had a pretty big constellation of family members,
Hmm.
and we'll use that term loosely. Um,
Yeah.
and I, I, we mentioned Edmund, and we mentioned
Hmm.
that there was visitation, and he had other children, as you had with the woman Cindy,
Hmm.
and so unfortunately, what I could extract from that is that there was never really any good, reliable, loving connection, to be had, not just for your filial, for your generation or the
Hmm.
siblings and so forth. But yeah, as you mentioned, your mother and your grandmother, Miranda, who's it's complicated, and
Hmm.
and I heard in another interview that this is ongoing, that you're still relating with Miranda. But
Yeah.
can you share as a therapist, with hindsight being fairly clear,
Hmm.
all this kind of schizotypal connection, where there's no ability to ground, there's no ability to form, and I think I'm asking this question because as the book progresses temporally, that it shows up in other relationships with you as a
Hmm.
young adult, and so, but
Yeah.
if we could start in that crucible of just this really um, this desert of familial connection. It's like there's just
Hmm.
this impoverishment of what
Yeah.
most people would want in a family. Like I've got a nice sibling, I've got a cousin, I've got an
Yeah.
uncle or an aunt, and really from what you revealed in the book, there's not a hell of a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's really not much. So can you reflect on that as a therapist now and lead us with young Johnzelle to maybe unpack that because I think there are people who are going to read your book and maybe hopefully people watching this that
Yeah.
have to process that part of so they're just starting out and they're processing that childhood
Hmm.
connect
Yeah.
reconnection, I guess.
Yeah. So for those listening or watching, the these names, for simplicity's sake, Edmund is my father, and I changed the names in the book
Mm-hmm.
of the characters. But Edmund's my father, Cindy is my mother, Miranda is my grandmother. So those are the three that you mentioned, and uh, those obviously the two people that created me. You would think at least I would have the two to take care of me, but that wasn't the case. And then Miranda being my maternal grandmother, um, you know, for a section of the book is the hero, right? Like she is my North Star of, okay, well, things suck at home and things like that, but this person loves me and considers me special.
Mm-hmm.
But as the story goes on, things, people change and things shift. But you mentioned like a desert of like a support system. And as an adult, obviously I'm 33 now. So I'm looking back at, say, 3-year old, 4-year old, five, whatever version of Johnzelle is going through these different things. And I, what I will say is, because, people ask me like, well, how did you make it through? Like, and people have said like about my story, they're like, well, this guy had every reason to give up or to be a villain or to, and I don't want to, like, I don't, like, I know I have value. Like, I know, like, I love, like, and understand myself finally. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
took me a long time to get here. But even when I didn't love, like, and understand myself, often because of the trauma and the neglect and abuse and the different things that were happening, um, there was a glimmer of hope that it doesn't have to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that came from other than probably the spiritual realm. And I talk about that evolution between like organized religion, but then like getting more into like West African spirituality, like later on in life and stuff like that. But something on the spiritual plane or just something internalized that I came with was like, it doesn't have to be like this and you're going to overcome this.
Mm-hmm.
Not from like a pithy, like, all your dreams will come through and it'll work out. But it was something very distinctly like, even when things got real dark, there was that, like, there was a knowing in me that this isn't right, but you don't have to do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I look back from a therapist perspective, it is interesting because I work with folks who have all different things. Like I have clients who are, it's hard to, you know, scrape up any sort of like sense of hope, right? Like I'll legitimately worry about them between sessions, right? And then I have people who have good lives, but they have, different adversities that they're facing and stuff like that. So I think from how you set this question up, like looking back from the therapist's mind of like my child self, the lack of support from what most people would get, like parents, and I had a brother in the house, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and, other, ancillary, like, support systems. It does take a village to raise a child, but what happens when the village is, a motley crew and not doing, a lot of people say, oh, well, they did their best. What happens when they're not doing their best, right? And it happens. I'll say that, I mean, we all know what can happen when someone doesn't have the resources they need. Um, and I mean, things can happen even if someone does have the resources they need. Um, my, my take on looking back at younger versions of myself is that it didn't start out, or I didn't have the support that I didn't know I needed, if that makes sense. Because you don't
Mm-hmm.
know what you are missing until you have something to compare it to.
Right.
And so me becoming an adult and studying psychology and obviously my own mental health, and coming out of that, like unraveled, and, we discover, okay, I have an anxiety disorder and these different things. looking back, I mean, obviously, throughout this book, there's the thesis of people need people. Unreciprocated relationships hurt because they're unsustainable. That's another one. And that seeking of being loved, liked, and understood is, interwoven throughout this book. If you read the book, you'll get that.
Yeah.
So from a therapist's mind looking back, or even just to say to somebody listening to this who hasn't read my book, you're worthy of reciprocity in your relationships. We are designed as humans to, we are wired to connect with each other. So, when it's not reciprocated somehow, it will hurt those who are carrying more of the weight. Or if we don't have the support we need as a social being, things can go wrong. So I think that is the kind of takeaway perspective I have, having went through my own childhood, because the place of acceptance and healing and I guess peace that I found as an adult, and having written this book and obviously processed a lot of things to get here, is that not so much woe is me, look at all the bad things that happened to me, but what my whole brand or existence as a therapist, as a storyteller is, okay, this happened, and then what did I do with it? Not to revise history, but I don't like everything happens for a reason type of person either, because what do I do with that? But this happened, not what was, it happened for a reason and I have to figure it out. Is this happened? What am I going to do about it? And the what am I going to do about it often reveals what we're made of. And that's the stuff that I like. I'm going to go grab some water real quick. Give me just a second.
Yeah, I can hit pause on this. Yeah, I'll
be right back.
Pause. Okay. So we paused for a second and I was like, oh, what the hell was I going to ask him next? And so here we are. Now, in reading the book, in reading some of the ugly things that you had to deal with, it triggered, or it invoked the sort of guardian empath in me. And so I'm sitting there vicariously experiencing, because I could attest to some stuff on my end from my childhood. And so, I love to I don't call it abuse. I call it tedious Machiavellian treachery. That's what one of my parents gifted to me. Tedious Machiavellian treachery.
Yeah.
Because I cannot
have to borrow that.
You welcome to it. Yeah. I can't diagnose the person that I'm no longer associating with for 23 years now, but they were either a dark vulnerable triad or a covert narcissist with psychotic things coming out. And again, it's not fair for me to say, I can just sort of postulate. But anyway, so when reading this was evocative for me, going back to the psychodramas and the violence and all this kind of stuff back in the day. And but the point that I want to get to that ties in with what you were saying about you, the 33-year-old, looking back, is I also saw you looking forward in the book and what you revealed through young Johnzelle, is that you were your own lodestar. You were, as you said, guiding star, North Star, because there were mentions throughout the book where you were like, and some of it was cynical, like, I'm going to get the fuck out of here and I'm going to go be a therapist and screw you guys in Roanoke and screw this crazy family. But even as a younger Johnzelle, there was this fire, this flame that again, I think you were looking forward into a future where, and I can't remember the moment of provenance in the book where I picked up on that. But am I projecting something onto that, or it seemed like you just knew, you just kind of had this impulse, this drive. There was a lure out there that might have been the older you, or the outcome that of a life that would be better lived and better than what you've extricated yourself from. Yeah,
and you picked up on it well, and I it's a lot of my things are, if it's important, it'll be repeated, but it's not to beat you over the head with it. And so sometimes I'm subtle, sometimes it's like, and here it is. But remember I described earlier how there was just like this glimmer of like, it doesn't have to be like this. as my lived experience, but also as the story evolves, you see that like little spark start to, glow, and it doesn't ignite as fast as you would think it would. But as you kind of, and I think I've had people read the book and be like, oh my God, when is this man going to get a break? Like, and even as you get through most of my 20s and you're like, okay, he's doing good now. And then it's boom, heartbreak. So that belief that I'm going to be okay. But the thing about it is that it goes in different directions, which is why I love this like mechanism of music and like fast forward, rewind. Here's an interlude. Let me step outside of this to show you this. Is because we're not a one track. We're not only going one direction. We're not linear. But that's how I see the world. And I'm glad that by illustrating it through my mind, you were able to experience it that way. So that was exactly what I intended, because I always tell people we don't have any control over the past. We have the present and we have a hope for the future. But control is something we want for our past and our future, but we don't always have full access to that. So what do you do about it? So, having something to anchor hope to, and in the book, my anchor of hope changes because it's never one thing, because a lot of things are not sustainable. And what I think I have, like we can all relate with that experience of like, oh, I think I have it figured out. I think I can anchor my hope in this. I think this is the relationship that will be the one, or this person will, show up for me and not let me down. And anytime you put all your eggs in one basket, you're going to get disappointed. Not to be doom and gloom, but like as humans, we're too dynamic to have everything anchored on one thing. Now, some might argue, I mean, I talk about my own deconstruction of like organized religion in this book, but some would say, oh, well, this is the thing you can anchor yourself to. If that works for you, lovely. But I argue that as humans, we are designed as holistic beings. We're not just like, we're physical, we're emotional, we're social, we're spiritual, we're financial, we're all of these different aspects. So if your anchor is just on one thing, like how much money you make or who you're in a relationship with, or your faith or whatever, if it's only on one thing, you're often missing something and you're going to be unbalanced. So that's my take on that.
No, there's different ontologies throughout our development, right? We're being something at different times. You even, and I'll amend what you just said with like your miseducation. You weren't even allowed to be brought up Black in a healthy way. Whether it was the maternal side that was at once in relation with Black men, but at the same time was overtly racist, right? And that shows up, and again, that speaks to that part of the country. I remember stuff like that, and also that the paternal figures like Mac or some of the other paternal figures, they weren't lodestars. They weren't necessarily shining exemplars of what healthy. And I'm sorry, I'll say this, but healthy Black expression is, or healthy cultural development is. So you were denied that, but you were able to recover that and recuperate that, I believe, very well, because I've watched a number of your interviews, and that comes out, and how and we'll talk about the trips to Africa too, which I think is a wonderful grounding experience too. So, and then the other thing to finish something off that I said earlier, like I was feeling young Johnzelle and I was empathizing, but you, and I mean this in the most positive way, were sensitive. You were, and you maintained that. That's why I congratulated you on surviving, not just committing suicide at 12 or 14 or 16, like a lot of us wanted to do when, we came from those adverse backgrounds, but that you kept that light. I'll point to your brother Joseph, or stepbrother, half brother Joseph. From what I could understand, he was a very violent, antisocial, kind of sociopathic creature. And that's one option for somebody who is born sensitive and then gets fucked up. And then, they have choices. And the fact that you stayed on the rails impresses me, because I was a very sensitive child up until about 7 or 8, and then I kind of flipped a not quite a sociopathic switch, but just a shutdown switch where you
Yep.
know we're not doing emotion anymore, and we're not doing that. And it took me 30 years to,
Yeah.
to reconnect, and I'm still
Yeah.
like I that switch is available to me, but
Hmm.
I live for connection and empathy, and not just
Yeah.
intellectual empathy, which is whatever, but emotive, affective
Yeah.
connection, like you said,
Holistic.
holistic, healthy, positively valent connection. So that
Balance.
yeah, so I get to bring that child back out, and that 6, 7 year old, right,
Hmm.
when I was really like in touch with a lot of
Hmm.
stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
but I want to acknowledge that, because again, people reading these books are going to have varying takeaways. They're going to have different
Hmm.
perspectives, and that's what I love about you incorporating the music into that, because you're like, here's a song. This is a vector point of my life right here. This song,
Hmm.
this means something, and so that song will mean something unique for the other individual.
For each person listening. Yeah.
Right, perspectively, they'll get it from another frame, and so I
Hmm.
love that, because music is a communication device, just like poetry
Hmm.
and the media arts and things like that. So very clever that you did that, and you incorporated that, because I think you're going to connect more comprehensively with
Hmm.
folks that are dealing with their childhood and dealing with everything that can happen and can go right or wrong in that regard. So,
Yeah.
um,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. And now let's move a little bit forward and bring all that childhood dysfunction to the fore. And it was interesting. You brought in persons in your life that you connected with, and they were showing up as kind of archetypal roles. So I'll reference Penny,
Mm.
Miranda,
Yes.
later stage Miranda. I think
Yeah.
you may have been talking to Penny, or maybe it was someone else, and they said, "Oh yeah, you're a surrogate. You're a fill-in for a spousal role or a partner role," and
Yes.
which happened to me too. I mean, it's normal.
Yeah.
It's way. But then Penny, and then things happened there,
Hmm.
and then and I don't know if this is appropriate, but even your marriage.
Yeah.
Things were discovered and explored there, which I almost
Yeah.
think, and I don't know psychology that well, but it reverts back to
Hmm.
your solving little mysteries within yourself, and your growing
Yeah.
as identifying who the hell Johnzelle is, or where they're going.
Yeah.
But I'll stop there and hand it back to you.
That was great. That was great how you teased it and you gave the overview. Because the cool thing about, or the thing I believe, at least about the genre of memoir, it's my favorite genre to read,
Uh-huh.
but I don't like it. We talked off the record about some thoughts about like the whole everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But I also, anyone who's been through things, we're like, as adults, we kind of look back at those children, the books that you read to children. It's like, and then they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
I don't want a memoir that ends in happily ever after, mainly because a memoir is not an autobiography. It's not your whole life story. It's just a whatever frame of time that you choose.
Yeah.
But a memoir of a person, I'm 33 now. I finished this book around 31. Like that's kind of where it cuts off at, but it's not comprehensive, but what do I look like at 31 thinking that I had the rest of my life figured out? Because in this story, you see a lot of times where I'm like, okay, maybe I have it figured out now. Maybe it'll get better or whatever. I finished writing this book. If you read this book, spoiler,
Yeah.
my marriage doesn't work out. I'm separated right now.
Yeah.
And I'm in a whole different relationship,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What would I have looked like ending that book or mixtape memoir and be like, and now my life is figured out and here's all the things that, no, I ended with a letter to myself about some things. Hey, we made it this far. Here's some things to remember that you learned along the way and good luck, know?
Yeah.
And I think that, to not, and we want, as humans, we want peace, we want joy, we want stability. But the idea that it will be tied up with a bow is a myth,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there were people that came in and I was like, oh, this will be that thing, or this will be the relationship that makes it make sense. And you were right. And like, even in my marriage, there were things that, you know, and as adults, a lot of adults will relate with the, okay, well, I recreated something that was a dynamic. Like, for example, I'm a Black man, I married a white woman, and obviously I am living a dynamic that created me in the first place because I'm mixed. But what didn't go right in my own thing, and how do I do that differently? But what still persists, or how does what I experienced as a child kind of come back to haunt me? But it's an interesting, being human is interesting, isn't it?
It sure as hell is. That's what the show.
I come to an awareness as I'm talking about my whole tell-all book here in this interview, right? That's why I'll leave it at, is like, wow, we're entertaining beings, aren't we?
Oh yeah. I think, you know, it keeps like the horror of the existential angstiness is what keeps us interested. You know,
yeah.
Who the hell was it?
If we had it all figured out, it would be boring.
Yeah. There's a Jungian well, he's a philosopher, but he likes Jung, and he's like, if we didn't have the injection of whatever you want to call it, it's a stimulus, we would never grow. We would never get anywhere. Nothing would ever happen, and blah 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 blah. And it doesn't mean that it has to be treachery all the time. It's like you can have a little fun, but you know, I am fully subscribed to the idea that we don't grow because life is great. We don't grow because we lay in our hammock and drink whatever every day.
We grow when stuff goes wrong.
We go when shit goes down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we have to keep that in mind, because as you said a moment ago, these aphorisms, these silly little sayings about, oh, you know, it's okay, it happened, it had to have happened for a reason, or, you know, whatever. It's like, you know, if we are to grow, it is because we are learning something. And typically when you learn something, it's through a mistake, which, and I love cognitive science. And so there's the idea of predictive processing, where you're updating your prior beliefs, right? And what greater way to update prior beliefs and knock yourself out of a canalization or something to have, you know, some kind of stimulus come at you. And usually the only kind of stimulus we recognize is something that doesn't feel good, or, you know, it affects the system. And we could use the metaphor of the immune system.
We don't change if something feels good. Why would we?
Right. So we want a little of that. In fact, I think it's, there's a Buddhist Catholic, Rohr or Butler, who came up with this term, the cult of innocence. And it's exactly that. Cult of innocence is, I think if you Google that, it comes up either John Butler or Richard Rohr. I think it's John Butler, who's, again, son of like this enlightened Catholic. And we'll touch on religion in a minute if you want. And basically the cult of innocence is like, I guess they call it bypassing sometimes. You know, it's just like everything is great, everything's perfect, and don't worry about, you know, or Jung talks about the shadow, right? Like, we don't suppress the shadow, or Freud and the superego. Like, this fucking superego is going to kick your, you know, it's the Inquisitor. It's going to kick your ass if you don't have yourself, you know, all your pistons firing the right way, whatever metaphor.
Yeah.
So anyway, blah blah blah. But yeah, no, we have to have that. We have to, and you know, your book certainly reveals. And again, you mentioned this, that the memoir, the anecdote, to me is so potent. Because I've had a number of psychologists on here, I've had a couple psychiatrists on here, and I read their books and they have case studies in there. And boy, my eyes get a little wider when the case study comes up, because it's like, usually it's kind of fucked up, and it's like, oh, and it's not just National Enquirer. Oh, it's like, you know, you want the outcome, you want to know, and it's kind of morbid, I guess, but it's intriguing. But something's going on. There's like a mirroring process or something where you're like, oh, okay. And if there's resolution, that's great. If not, you know, you're aware again that humanity is messy and that it's like, I'm running my mouth, but sorry.
No, you're doing, it's all good. It's all relevant.
Let me ask you. So I brought up Butler and Rohr or whatever. You said this earlier. You, started in with Catholicism through Miranda, and as did I. The person that raised me thought it would be good to ground me in some kind of religious thing, which I let go at 15. I was like, I'm done. But you were curious, and you wanted to, you know, again, take another aspect and see what's going on. So that shows up in your book. It takes you all the way to Liberty University, which I thought was interesting. That was a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
I felt for you. Dude, I felt for you as a kid. I felt for you as a young adult. I'm like, yeah. Like...
He chose badly. But it sparked some of my best cuss outs.
Yes.
Yes.
And I could just see the Ned Flanders like, now we don't really want to say that, do we? And Jesus is listening.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, I'm a heretic.
I was like, I got your villain.
Yeah, right. You can.
You don't know who you're messing with. You don't know where I came from.
Right, dude. I've seen shit that'll make.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's talk about. And I guess we could reveal right now. I really want to have you back for another conversation, and we're going to talk whatever you want. But I'd love to get into philosophy and social systems and spirituality and things like that. So, where is Johnzelle at? My cat is suddenly interested in me tonight. I don't know why.
That's okay. When I do therapy sessions, people's pets come into the room and they sit by. So I think I have this like animal whisperer thing.
Okay.
So yeah, your cat is getting some therapeutic benefits from me. Yeah.
Spot meet Johnzelle.
I'll invoice you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. This cat needs help anyway.
So you were going to ask a question about, I guess, where I'm at spiritually now, or
it's ongoing, obviously, but so but you speak to this. This is a character in your book. Your interface with wisdom traditions and spirituality, etc. So maybe I'll ask it this way: what's your takeaway from that which you experienced thus far that I know about in the book?
Okay. So in Mixtape and Memoir, you're going to see young Johnzelle. Catholics love to baptize a baby or a young child, right? So that happened with me. And then the evolution of, okay, what does it mean to be a good Catholic? And what does it mean to go through the motions? What does it, and then of course we're coming of age and these different things, like you start asking questions, you get curious. I go through kind of like a Protestant phase where in high school, I'm like veering away from what my grandma taught me and doing it a little bit differently because I'm seeing more, I'm learning more, I'm asking more questions. And then we end up, like you said, I'm a grad student going to become a therapist. I end up at like a super, conservative, school for grad school and being like, I think I bought a lemon here, and then in my 20s, you have like a deconstruction that had to happen and not so much everything happens for a reason, but I went through such a dark time being a student at that place that when the dust settled from it, there were many times in the story that my circumstances could have taken me out. That, even writing it, but also I remember even in recording the audiobook, the production of the audiobook slowed down significantly. I was ahead of schedule for days. Okay. And then when I got to that part, it fell behind schedule because of the weight of it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and then you see, as you read Mixtape and Memoir, you see the story pick up after that era. And then as the reader, you've been sitting in this with me. You're kind of going through the whiplash of like, okay, he's getting, okay. Wait, he got, okay. So it's like, I'm taking you on the journey, but the weight lifts gradually as I get beyond and as I get into that deconstruction era. And I'll say what remains now without being taken up too much time is I mentioned that hope, that spark, that knowing that I didn't necessarily acquire from anything external. It was there as long as I can remember, that it doesn't have to be like this. Mm-hmm. And then I mentioned earlier in this interview, we got to be careful what we anchor ourselves to because one thing isn't sustainable for that long, at least in my experience. Mm-hmm. So what I'll say is what remains now is that hope, right? And now, of course, the book doesn't cover this, but like I mentioned that I'm separated, I'll be divorced in a few months, but, this post-marriage era, single dad era, dating, kind of whatever. What remains is all of the lessons before this, right? And even the lessons from the more recent, like, changes in life transitions and stuff like that. That hope that I had from a young age, like you see it evolve and blossom and dampen and then go, it's a dance, right? So there's that, whatever you want to call that. There was between the Catholicism, the evangelistic Christianity and different things that I was involved in, I will say what remains, I don't want to speak too specifically of it, but what I'll say is I am still deconstructing because I'm not that cool with white Jesus for real. Yeah. But like the Holy Spirit, there were elements of that kind of I felt. And if I felt it and it's in my intuition, I'm not going to dispose of it. But I'm still working through, I read a lot. So I'm still working through, say, y'all gonna have to explain to me or make some sense about how we use this particular brand of white Jesus to enslave people in this country. Where's the accountability here? Yeah. So I'm on that in my deconstruction journey. But what I'll say is that hope from a child, right? There is a knowing and an intuition and a spiritual connection with the Holy Spirit, whatever that may be. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be vague or like there's something out there, but like I know it from those eras and it's still with me. Okay. And then as you continue to read towards the end of the book, my visits to West Africa and connecting with roots that weren't shown to me from my West African father, and then knowing and connecting and being in the places of my Black ancestors in West Africa, it's the knowing of the presence of and that entanglement with the spirit that I had in me and that hope that I had from a child. They're all kind of communing to what spirit and spirituality is for me now. But that's as concise as I can make it for something like an interview. So that's where I'm at now. And there's accountability there. There's knowing, there's peace. There's that belonging that I sought for throughout this book. You're going to see Johnzelle searching. Can someone love, like, and understand me? Yeah. That's what I was searching for. But not to say the memoir ends and I lived happily ever after, but as a person who chose to keep going and to evolve and to unlearn miseducation. The book ends with this like, I kind of tap into the word of freedom, like when I'm in Ghana. And that's the era I'm in now. It's freedom. It's peace. It's joy, but there's still things to work through. Like the book ended and then I got blindsided with the separation. So there are, the story is still evolving. Yeah. So, that's what I got as far as where spirit is. So great question.
Yeah. And 60-year-old Johnzelle is going to write a hell of a book too, whatever the tech is in 30 years. Yeah. It might not be mixtapes anymore. It'd be like, click. Yeah.
It's like beam download into
the, Right.
Don't let them put a computer in you.
Oh, hell no. Like, no. But,
we already wear them on our wrist,
Oh, I know.
And in our pocket.
I'm a bit of a Luddite. I haven't totally dropped into the matrix yet.
Yeah.
And I, in your having gone, how many times did you go to Africa? Twice?
I've been 3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
And you took your daughter there one time, which is great.
Yep.
That vibe must have been interesting because wonderfully interesting because you speak in it's not in the book, but in another interview that you did, about the sort of collectivist, almost communitarian culture. It's not the literal communitarian, but just this collectivist culture, this communal culture, that we are bereft of here in the United States, because that wouldn't be good, neoliberal capitalism, of course. But anyway, sorry, editorial. But anyway,
no, that's real.
I was feeling
that individualistic thing is whooping our ass right now.
Oh, it's terrible. It's a disease. It's
divided.
Yeah. And you mentioned being a minimalist in the book, and so I'm with you there. But I was enjoying that you felt this connection there, both the shadowy connection with the slave trade, but also just being back connected again, you know?
Yes.
And I just, that was cool. And it actually evoked something in me, because I remember years ago, Richard Pryor, in a stand-up comedy sketch saying, yeah, he went back to the motherland, and he says, I'm never going to use the N-word again, you know? And, you know, Richard Pryor was, yeah, that was part of his toolkit, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I am never going to use that word. And so yeah, it's a profound impact, right? You're somewhere where the original folks are, and you know, obviously it was colonized to hell, but there's some shred of, just like you, there is some spirit there. There's something still alive.
Ooh, I like how you said that. You connected with the original, but it was colonized as hell, and you were like, just like you. I was like, yes.
No, I'm feeling the parallels
I joke
there.
about that. I joke about that now, and people can say what they want, right? Like, I obviously chose to, and I'm not going to regret relationships I've had and stuff like that. Like, my ex is a white woman, and I obviously have a child, you know, who is mixed race, whatever. But in dating, like, I'm bisexual, so, and then you get a subtle, that's why I said sometimes in the book I'm direct and sometimes I'm subtle. There's a subtle coming out of bisexuality in the book. It's very faint, but it wasn't where I was in that part of the book, so it needed to be subtle. But obviously the story continues and, like, post separation and stuff like that. But when I got out there dating again, I, in particular, was like, I am not dating a white person again. I'm going to date brown people, specifically Black men. And my joke was, I will not be colonized again. So it was funny that you said that. I was like, I've been married to a white woman. In the book, you'll read what, it wasn't all bad, but like, there were some very distinct things, like my experiences with white women from having a white mother, having a white maternal grandmother, right? And those things, and what those women did and do throughout the story. One who goes with me through the journey could probably understand, like, yeah, he has tried that, and let him try something different and see how it goes. So currently, at the time of this recording, my boyfriend is a mixed race Black guy like me. So there's some similar lived experiences and understanding. So in this era, I don't think I want to go there again. But you mentioned Africa and being colonized to hell, and I just made that connection. I would joke. I'd be like, I ain't dating no white guy, I ain't dating no white woman. Like, I'm done. No colonization here.
No. And I alluded to something earlier with your marriage to Rachel, that, you know, I think there was a lineage there, almost quite a literal familial lineage. And in reading it, it felt like that there was something that needed to be worked out with having the grandmother and Cindy, and then you enter into this marriage. And I'm not trying to go Freud on you. It's just that I felt like,
I'm working on a second memoir right now, and it's going to be in verse. I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm working on a second memoir. It's going to be in verse, so I'm going to write it in poetry just to do something different and challenge myself. But it's only in hindsight of this marriage that I realize, and you hear about this in psychology and things like that. People marry their parents sometimes.
Right.
And I won't say that it was the exact same, like that kind of Freudian stuff. But there were things about my ex that were very similar to my mother and my grandmother. And you don't see them when you're in it, but you can see it in hindsight. And it's, for me, it's not a like, oh shit, how did I miss this? It's a, well, let me explore that. And I have the vehicle of storytelling to do that. So you're on it. And I thought I would let you know, I'm working on that in my writing too. So.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Before we close the conversation, I do want to talk about future writing and future books. And so again, part of my bringing up Rachel, is my father, married his mother, and he married her again in a second marriage. And again, it's not the gross incestuous shit. It's more the archetypal role, the unfulfilled relation, because his mother was a domineering bitch, you know, and so he married a domineering bitch, which is the one that gave birth to me, and had some psychotic on top of that. And then the woman
spicy.
Oh yeah. Well, much like you, I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through that crucible,
Amen.
right? I don't know what the hell I would be, but it wouldn't be good, you know? So
Hmm.
I owe that person the credit because I had to fight for 20 something years and not physically, there was some of that, but I had to, I was addicted to confrontation once I detached from
Yeah.
that person and I
Hmm.
realized it, but I spent 20 something years fighting, constantly fighting
Hmm.
because I'm just too goddamn tenacious to, not assert myself. I would not acquiesce. And this person with
You
whatever
really
was going,
shouldn't in this particular day and age. But
no, no.
to that credit, I'll say a little bit of the craziest Cindy is here. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not yielding knives through,
I
and
actually
doing any
loved
of,
Cindy at that fucking road rage thing. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh hell yeah,
yeah,
crazy that bitch, crazy.
yeah, 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 yeah. So there's a little, it's there. I mean, I
Yeah,
was watching,
yeah,
but I got that, licensed professional counselor grounding in me,
yeah, yeah.
but don't fuck around and find out because
Oh yeah, yeah,
you don't know what I've been through, right?
yeah. I'll open it
Um,
up. I'll bring it out.
yeah. So you were gonna ask something about I guess future works. I didn't want to interrupt you,
Well,
but
yes,
that was
yes.
a good segue.
When we bring this in for a landing, I would like to ask you to share with us what you're going
Yeah,
to do. And
yeah.
talk about fuck around and find out the times that Joseph was beating you and whooping on you. I I just the child me was like, I want to get a hammer and I want to break that hand and that arm so bad that it'll never be able to move in the
Hmm.
degree that it would take to hurt you. Not you,
Yeah,
Johnzelle, but just like people like that, who take
yeah.
advantage of people and wear on them like that. It's like,
Hmm.
that's where my mother shows up, the psychotic. And it's like, I would just take a
Mm.
hammer and break things so badly that there's
Yeah,
no way you could ever lift your arm up, high enough to punch somebody again. And I know that's kind of
yeah.
weird, but it's like,
Definitely.
yeah, it comes out, right? That
You can only
violence.
push people so far.
Yeah.
You can only, and I think that you mentioned this earlier in the interview. It A person could go through like it was supposed to be like, oh, you can push someone so far, and then you can see why they give up, or like I can see that as a therapist, but the thing, I mentioned things like freedom and joy and peace and stuff like that. I'm glad I didn't lose myself in the middle of all of that too, and I think that's where I go back to that little glimmer
Mm-hmm.
of hope because I didn't let go of it doesn't have to be like this. But
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have that, I could have ended up like Joseph, where it's like you have hope in anything, so you're just reacting to your environment. Um, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't lose myself, and I'm glad that I was able to shed and to get rid of some of the stuff that no longer served me, even the things about my identity. And then even as time continues to go on, I pick up and I put down things like, a marriage or
Yeah.
my identity, truly, or, whatever life transitions I go through and stuff like that. So again, that's the beautiful part of being human for sure. But uh, I like a story, even if it's like this is a memoir, so it's true. But
Right.
I like a story where the person who is intolerable gets some justice. Um, and
Excuse me.
uh, uh, you know, I won't spoil it for the readers, but uh, in the end, what I'll say is the fuck around and find out is that people started to lose access to my
Yeah.
brilliance.
Right.
And that is the thing you gotta live with.
Mm-hmm.
And not brilliance as an ego, but
Yeah.
I learned that I had value and all of you people wanted me to feel like I didn't.
Yeah.
And I finally realized who I am. And you don't even get to be around me when I
Yeah.
experience that. Like, I'm loving this time right now because I am everything that I have worked to be. And I know that there's more ahead of me. Like, I
Right.
still have that. It doesn't have to be like this, whether it be the world that I live in or, my daughter is obviously going to be the child of a divorce and, she's obviously gone through her own thing, but her experience as a mixed race child, doesn't have to be like mine was. Like
Right.
there's so much, it continues to ripple out. I'm not done here. So that
Mm-hmm.
glimmer of hope that I had from a young child is going to continue to guide me through these additional eras of life. So that's
Yeah.
something that's exciting to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, and I'll undergird brilliance by saying that every parent, mother, father, lives to see the transcendence of their child, the sort of
Mm-hmm.
Jungian individuation of their child, and um, they're not there for that, you know. And it's by design, because not to pick on Cindy, but I just recognize a kind of classic narcissist behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
who the fuck has time for that when they're an adult? You know, when you're a child, you're
Yeah.
trapped, but when you're an adult, you make choices.
Yep.
And so yeah, and the same thing for the paternal parent. You know, where the hell were you? That kind of thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
I get that. I get that in the transcendence, you know. I'm fortunate that I get along with my father now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've always kind of just been like buds or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and he took off when I was 6, but it was for his own survival. You know, and
Yeah.
I for a nanosecond will not begrudge him that, other than that he didn't take me with him because I was
Yeah.
left in the house. But you know, it's like I have that. I have a father, and I can count on
Mm-hmm.
that, and so I'm
Good.
blessed in that way, right? But yeah, and he got to see me not turn into a complete disaster or a train wreck. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure he was worried at times, but so anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the brilliance, is that you
Yeah.
have arrived, and you are continually arriving. You will arrive until they put you in the ground
Yeah.
or cremate you or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, so I get that 100%. Let me propose this.
Okay.
Let's I might ask one interlude question, and I think we can do this in the recorded conversation. And then I want to maybe bring up to see if you want to talk about Captain Fix-A-Ho, and then let's talk about the future. Let's talk about projects, and then we'll bring this one in for a landing, and then maybe in a few
That's
weeks
fine.
in May, I really want to
Yeah.
have you back, and we'll riff, we'll just flow.
That sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. So the interlude, as per, you know, like the way you were doing it in your book, the last time we heard from Joseph was he he fixed that rip-off moped of yours, which I thought
Yes.
was laudable. You know, let's give him a gold star for that one. But
Mm-hmm.
can you speak to what's happened with him? Because I am sort of intellectually curious that a person with those kind of antisocial tendencies, with a little bit of a violent streak, major violent
A
streak,
lot of a bit of a
a
violence.
lot. I'm trying to minimize something that's obviously not minimal. But
Yeah.
can you speak to that, or do you want to talk about that off camera?
I could say it. You know,
Okay.
I've been telling people with these
Where are
interviews,
they now?
nothing's off limits because
You're an open book, aren't you?
and well, quite literally,
Literally an
it's
open
me.
book. I wanted to
Yeah.
bring that cliche out. You're an open book.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
When people say I'm an open book, I mean quite literally.
You're like, girl,
I busted
stop.
myself wide open for the world to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, his, you know, through the book, his it's intense in the beginning. I distance myself obviously from not living in the same home, and then I go and live my life. But then as these more major characters start to fall off or get pruned, he's the one that kind of fades.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't get like a I'm cutting you off.
Right.
But he kind of got cut off around the time that Cindy did.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, where are they now? Now, I haven't spoken to most of these people in a couple to several years. But to my knowledge, from the last I saw him, he had never not lived with Cindy. So he never, what do they call it? That failure to launch. He never,
Yeah. Yeah.
even as an adult being a few years older than me, he had when I was, you know, going through my own, you know, 20s or whatever, I never saw him move out, get an apartment, you know, so I don't know.
Okay.
And I don't talk to him. So, I don't know, but, and I think the cool thing about, you know, these people who got cut off or whatever, you know, not to be like, oh, well, this is how I feel about it. I love that I'm at a place in my life where I can think of these people. Obviously, I wrote these stories, and if you didn't want to be written about, you should have behaved better. But I don't hate the people.
Mm-hmm.
I simply, you don't have access to me. And it's not to hurt you or anything like that. You don't have access to me because it was unsustainable. Unreciprocated relationships hurt because they're unsustainable. That is what I learned through going through all of this. So I stand on that. Cindy, you'll realize why she can't be around, especially once my daughter was born. I was like, you can't be like this around my child, you know? And, you know, other people, you know, kind of come and go. And then, you know, throughout the book, to give listeners who are going to read, you know, Miranda is the most, she stays throughout the whole story. But what I'll say is, even as, you know, time continues to go on, I mean, literally last week, a major boundary was set with Miranda, that we'll see what happens with it. But even, you know, there are some people who have Arrested Development who even though time goes on, they will still try you. And, you know, Miranda, had to, you know, not in a abrupt way, but she had to be told, hey, if it costs me my peace, it's too expensive. And I'm not playing around about my peace. I've been through too much. I've made it too far. I'm not playing about the peace, the joy, or the freedom of me, my child, and anyone that is in my chosen family. So, where are they now? I don't know about my parents. I don't know about, my siblings, but I do know about what is in my realm of control and who I have influence and who I choose to be my family. And, we'll keep plugging away with them, and I'll have the lessons from the people who didn't remain. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it's more of an intellectual curiosity. And I think, like you said, failure to launch, and that's kind of a cliche. Like people pick on the millennial generation for being, you know, living with mom at 40 and all that shit. So it's like, yeah. So anyway, no big deal. But just more of just a curiosity. Do you want to close out with Captain Fix-A-Ho? Because I think, much like Rachel, I think
Captain Save-A-Ho. Yeah.
Save-A-Ho. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Same difference.
Yeah. There's a fixer there, right?
Yeah, I'll give a quick synopsis of that because that's my favorite chapter.
Okay.
It was the most painful one to write.
Okay.
And it was also the first one that I really explored because I was going through it in real time in the middle of writing this book.
Oh.
So, what I'll say is, I think it's track 33 or 34. I can't remember.
I think it's 34.
Yeah, rest in peace. But Rest in Peace, Captain Save-A-Ho, is the song, track. And, basically, I get to a place of, I'm a therapist. I've got my own child. I've got a marriage. I've got the things. I've overcome a lot. And, you know, as people do, you might find opportunities to give back, right? So I meet this young man who is a lot like me at that age. He's about 12 years younger than me. He was like 18. I was like, okay, I could take this guy under my wing. I can use some of the things I've learned along the way. He's a mixed race guy, whatever. And what starts off as like, okay, I see myself in you. I want to support you in your journey. So maybe maybe your journey could be a little bit lighter. And it starts off good, but then it crashes and burns, right? That chapter begins with the line, "This is a story of how I made it to 31 years old before I got my heart broken for the first time." So, I foreshadow, but the cool thing about that track is it's a world within itself. Like if you took that out of the book, it could be a complete story.
Yeah.
But it existing within Mixtape shows, like, as you've read my whole story leading up to this, it's going to hit even harder because you've seen what I've been through and you're going to feel the weight of that even more. And so what I'll say is, just like the track title of it, Rest in Peace, Captain Save-A-Ho, one small typo that the book had that I'm annoyed about is that they left off the RIP part on the little cassette.
Oh, okay.
So the song is Rest in Peace, Captain Save-A-Ho, RIP, but it says Captain Save-A-Ho in the book. But I told myself with that little typo, I didn't make that mistake.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, but with that song title, I was very intentional about like the songs I chose, but also the track titles and how they could relate. And it's like, no, you get to see that whole story and you realize Johnzelle learns he is no longer going to try to save anybody because the only person that he has been good at saving is himself.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so that is my synopsis of that. But that track is my favorite, was
Okay.
the hardest to write, and I spent thousands of dollars on therapy for that situation. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. And like I said with the other people in the book that did not make it, to the end or at this era of my story with me, there will be because there is I don't know if it'll make it into a future writing or whatever, but there was a reappearance of Zaylen after
Okay.
that story ends. Yeah.
Okay.
But I've already written the chapter, but I don't know if it'll fit in a future work or whatever. But
Okay.
what I'll say is what I learned is, again, it goes back to that thing of unreciprocated relationships will hurt you, Johnzelle, because they're not sustainable.
Yeah.
If you're putting in or if you care more than someone cares about you, you're going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone reading Mixtape and Memoir seeing this happen over and over and over again, but in a fun, like creative, almost like I've heard people describe it kind of like a little bit like a thriller sometimes, like and just like literary whiplash has been another one that people have said. You're going to walk away with the lessons of reciprocal love, like, and understanding is important. We're all seeking connection and belonging, and it hurts like a motherfucker when the ball is dropped there. So I like that track a lot because it gives a complete story, but it also shows what happens when you have seemingly overcome the things, but you didn't quite have that lesson figured out and you're continuing to learn. I love that our stories don't end and they're in a nice bow, but we keep evolving. So
yeah. No, it's ongoing and developing. And yeah, the reciprocity, what I was taking away is this was cumulative and it was a kind of you went through an exam, a test kind of thing, and you were able to have salience in the matter, and then some closure, some partial closure, because there are other instances throughout the book in your earlier formative years where you have these non-reciprocal, asymmetrical relationships that are just, like rapid fire in junior high and elementary school and into later years, into early adulthood. And Jalen seemed to be this sort of summative experience or cumulative introspective opportunity to say, yeah, okay, and it's so, judging from the outside, you did everything right. You saw, as you said, you in there in that young man, but unlike you, and no fault, no judgment towards this young person, that they were not, for whatever reason, able to move through as you did. So that, I think, is the sort of mechanical thing. But I think it was also important maybe for you to experience that. Again, not that anything happens for a reason, but you came out of that. You came out of that with what was necessary for you to understand. I think. Yeah.
It that heartbreak was felt, but I think the cool thing, like I said, I don't like a happy ever after, but this isn't, and then it all ended up sad too. It's not that either.
Right.
But I think people reading a book and in the memoirs that I've resonated with the most are the ones where there's some ambiguity. And everyone can relate to I had hoped this would go this way, but it went a different way. And something with an ambiguous ending or kind of like a discomfort, different people will sit with the different stories in different ways, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be you completely understand everything. Because if it was exactly your story, it would bore you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think your story, even chapters before its closure, speaks to your having arrived and met some life goals. You've managed to get to a place where as an individual reader, I'm like, okay, Johnzelle's okay. He's doing okay right now, right? And
Yeah.
and any of us
In the end of the book, you will see Johnzelle. Okay Johnzelle is talking to you right now.
Yeah. And I think again, anybody that's and what percentage of humanity has gone through adversity to get to adulthood? You could live a charmed life, and there's still something shitty's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
But so not to put things on scales or anything, but if you can do that, that is a wonderful inspiration for other people. And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways of your book is it's not, like you said, it's not a gee whiz Disney kind of ending. It's not, it's messy, but it's a good messy because like I said, you survived. You are a survivor, in several ways, in a number of ways. And your story is far from over. You're 33, you got a long set of, book writing adventures and opportunities because you do like, from listening to interviews, you this is your thing. You want to be a writer. You want to do this on top of your therapy practice. But and so you alluded to prose, and you alluded to a children's book.
Yes.
You in another interview you said you had to chop 60,000 words out of this book. So there's material out there in the ethers that can coalesce into something else. So one question I like to ask is, writing aside, therapy aside, is there something crazy fun, creative that, when the space is right that you would like to do? Is there another art medium that you would like to get involved with? You played clarinet as a child. Do you want to revisit your musicals, Johnzelle, or no? Okay. Fuck the clarinet. No.
I thought about it a few times. Yeah. I thought about it. I was like, what would happen if I would kind of have to start over.
Yeah. So is there some expression that's nascent, it's gestating and that you can share?
Okay, so you mentioned I'm working on a children's book. I'm working on I mentioned a second memoir that would be in verse, and it would be new stories. It wouldn't be the same as Mixtape.
Okay.
It would I would think it would kind of pick up a little bit where it left off, and also kind of shade and provide balance with it. And then I'm also working on, I'll say probably the most creative that I'm exploring now is a novel, which depending on how nasty I want to be, it might be a smut situation, but focusing on this era of being bisexual, right? And I want to explore through a novel. And I am working on that. But as far as what is something creative that I want to see, honestly, and this might sound very dad of me, but and I wouldn't say I make my legacy. My daughter isn't my legacy. I'm not one of those people who's like, she needs to be even better. She's going to be who she wants to be, and I'm going to give her the tools that I can, and I'm going to, do my best to show her what she doesn't have to learn the hard way.
Right.
But raising a good human being in a crappy world as a single dad, not knowing how everything is going to work out for me, is a creative endeavor. I know it sounds artsy and I don't know what it may be, but that really is it, because like I said, I'm grateful to be 33 and to be able to say, like, I checked all of the boxes. Like, I survived, I got my master's degree. I've been a therapist over a decade now. I've been a company of one solo practitioner as a therapist for 7 years now. I have a child. I did marriage for, together 9, married 8. I know how to I know how to be in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, I mentioned new relationships and things like that. But no, my child she's 6 years old, and, she's going to be a good human.
Mm-hmm.
And the creative part of that is, I don't know I don't know who she's become, but being present and observing it while it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the joy and the honor to be along for her journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is the beautiful thing of, talking about all these stories that I've shared and things like that, is I get to be the type of parent that I deserved. And that somehow is closing loops and healing for me. Like I had mentioned in another interview how I brought my daughter to Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought my daughter to Sierra Leone a few months after I got separated, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
what would seemingly be like, wow, what a whirlwind year, right? My book is finished and all of this, but I took my daughter to the place where it all started,
Okay.
that tied so many loops together, but her journey gets to be very different than mine. So I get to show her not parenting out of what I didn't have, but I get to be the healed, evolved, uh, uh, joyful, peaceful version of me. And she gets to have that as her parent. And then what will she become if she has the tools that she needs? That is creativity. Not to say my child is my project, but she is my greatest masterpiece
Mm-hmm.
outside of myself. And that's not to be ego, but you have to love, like, and understand yourself before you could do it for somebody else. So because I do that work within, I'm able to give her the best of me. And my daughter, Maya Jane, is my biggest creative project. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Great.
leave it at that.
No, great answer. Great answer. And that didn't even occur to me that's an undertaking in its own right. And
Mm-hmm.
she's adorable too, by the way. I saw a picture on
Thank
your
you.
Psychology Today profile, I think. You have a cute little
Mm-hmm.
picture. And you have a picture in the book too. You had the kid and played we called them stovetops back in
Yes.
the day.
Yep. The
I
high
was
top. Yeah.
I was loving that, dude. That was big back, like in the late 80s and stuff when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, "Oh my
I
God,
had so
look at."
much fun with my hair. Yeah.
That's so cool. Did you ever watch,
Yeah.
speaking, you've talked about hair in other interviews and stuff. Did you ever watch Chris Rock's movie Nice Hair?
I have not. Good hair.
Good
Yeah.
hair, good
I
hair.
think I
Sorry.
saw snippets of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
My
need
wife
to
and I
I
sat
need to get to
down.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 10 years ago, 8 years, whenever it came out, we watched it. It was like, I
Uh-huh.
love Chris Rock anyways, but
Hmm.
man, that's brave, man. That is very brave because it started with his
Yeah.
wife, right? And he just started
Yeah.
asking questions, and it took him down a big old rabbit hole. And I'm like,
Wow. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
if you get a chance to watch it, it's cute. So
Okay.
anyway, all right. Now before we say goodbye, is there anything you wanna wrap this up with? Anything you want to tie it? Anything to bring in before we let the audience go? As we mentioned a little while ago, if this was good for you, we can have you back and we can
Yeah,
do
we're going to
another.
come back for another
Okay,
interview.
perfect,
So
perfect.
listeners, we will
Stay
continue
tuned. Dun, dun,
yeah,
dun.
and it'll be just a conversation about something that you and I cook up. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, first of all, Justin, thank you for your time. I will say I've done several interviews, and I've enjoyed my interviews that I've done for the book.
Hmm.
This is the best part of working so hard to get something out,
Okay.
is sharing it with people and seeing how people interact.
Yeah.
And in a way, it is very meta in that by telling my story, adult Johnzelle is receiving some of the community and support that didn't have those other
Mm.
things, but other people are seeing versions of themselves, and our community is happening through literature, and I love that.
Hmm.
So I really enjoyed this interview, and I just want to thank you for your time. What I'll say to listeners as we wrap up is that, like I've kind of been saying, is you are worthy of reciprocity.
Hmm.
Focus on love, liking, and understanding yourself. Give that to others. be mindful that you're also receiving it. Because if it's imbalance, what did I say? If unreciprocated relationships hurt because they're unsustainable,
Right.
if it's unreciprocated, it's unsustainable. Be mindful of that, because if it's going to hurt you, right? And we're human though, so the whole know better, do better doesn't always go in a linear path, as you'll see, dumbass Johnzelle, and I'm being facetious here, throughout the book over and over, is like, oh, here we go again.
Right.
But I fail better. And,
Yeah.
and so we're going to be human, and we're going to circle the block. We're going to make mistakes, but, we're all human on this journey. We are trying, but not everybody is trying at the same caliber. So you're worthy of connection. Yeah. You're worthy of internal love, like, and understanding. You are worthy of peace and joy and all of these things. And these are not just pithy things that I'm saying to you. I say them to myself. My ancestors, capital A, I'm talking about the Black ones. They remind me of these things even when I start to doubt myself. So, I like to end on that, because I'm not just saying it as a motivational guru or whatever, because I clearly have a dark sense of humor and I can be cynical, but that's what I want to end on, because that's what we're here for. That's why we listen to stories. That's why we come to podcasts. That's why we read, we write, we listen to music, all of these things. We want to be loved, liked, and understood. And just for a person listening to know you're worthy of that. And anybody who says you're not worthy of that, fuck them.
Amen.
I don't know if you can keep that in the episode, but do away with them. Yeah.
No. I forgot to say before we hit record that this is we do sailor talk here, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, sailor talk. Oh, sentence enhancers. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Little
sentence enhancers.
When you talked about SpongeBob, I'm like, dude, seriously. I was 30 when that guy came out, so I got my SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Oh, where the?
I love it.
Yeah. He's all over. But anyway. Yeah, no. When you start talking about SpongeBob, I'm like, yes, that's so cool.
Yes.
Because I'm 56 and I still love SpongeBob. I don't watch him much.
No, my
anymore.
daughter asks for it by name now, because we're past Bluey.
Okay.
Thank God we don't, because I had to tell her Peppa Pig died. I said Peppa Pig died, and Bluey is who you got. And then we went through Bluey, love Bluey down. Bluey is great, but now she asked for SpongeBob by name. So we're on SpongeBob, and my shows that I loved when I was a kid, I'm showing her. So SpongeBob, Hey Arnold, all of that. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Shared experience. Yes. In fact, one of the nice kid memories I have is sitting with my old man and watching the Bugs Bunny cartoons when they had it on Saturday mornings on I think it was ABC.
Cartoon Network.
Well, no, this was back in the 70s when it was on three channels and the antenna. And my old man and I would sit there on Saturday mornings and just giggle, you know. And I was like, that's good that you can do. That's good to do.
Yeah.
Johnzelle, this has been a wonderful conversation. It's what I was imagining it to be and more. And so I appreciate that from you. I appreciate your book, because it's so well written. It's something like we've touched on a couple of times. I connected with it at the points that are appropriate for me. It brought things up in me too. And that's just wonderful. Because anyway, I could go on. So thank you. I appreciate that. To the YouTube audience and the Spotify audience, I hope this was an enjoyable conversation. I'm going to bring Johnzelle back. We may gloss on a little bit about the book, but I think we're going to go out and have a good, meaningful conversation. We don't know what the hell it is yet, so we're going to do that. All right. I'll say goodbye to you after we're done when I stop the record. Okay. But Spotify and YouTube, guys, thank you so much. And we'll check in with you on the next conversation. So let me stop this here. Chaucito.